Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're looking at Burn Rune, a pretty popular anti-meta style deck. You know, we're going to be countering a lot of aggro bloods and rune decks. So this is, I would say, you could put it in tier 2, that's where a lot of placements have put it. But I'd probably put it into a low tier 1 as, like I said, it's anti-meta. You're countering basically every other tier 1 deck, and that's the primary purpose of this deck. So, of course, we've got plenty of burn things with the Halo Golems, the Master Mages, Dance of Death, Piercing Runes, all those sort of cards, Levi's, all the good stuff. Nice additions like Starseer's Telescope, which is a nice recovery, along with the fact that you get to draw a card and gain your play point back. You know, all that is great for that card. We also have our Healer, just a little bit of a boost, helps out. And other than that, not too much. Mutagenic Bolt, one of. Don't really need it for much, but it is good if you do get board flooded, especially against something like, say, Forest or Dragon, where big threats or small threats can build up and you've got to get rid of all of them at once. Other than that, it's your pretty stock standard Earth deck. I mean, you've got Mages of Nightfall, Magic Illusionist, all that sort of stuff that really does benefit from the Earth Sigils quite a bit. So hopefully you enjoy it, and we'll get right into some games. So our first matchup is against Blood. Like I said, still one of the top decks at the moment. Blood, Vengeance and Aggro are pretty strong, but this deck does an okay job at countering most of the early plays and allowing you to take control for the late game. Which is quite nice when you're playing against Blood. So you're dropping things like the Iron Smelter, the Starseers and Magic Illusionist. We've pretty much got the optimal hand for our beginning, allowing us to block damage while at the same time being able to clear threats. We do get the Witch's Cauldron, which compared to Starseers isn't quite as good this turn, but will hopefully work out quite nicely with this Magic Illusionist, allowing us to proc the Cauldron effectively. Another good break. I mean, making sure that that wolf can't kill us off is always nice. And of course, Red Hot Ritual isn't a bad draw. Allows us to save this Magic Illusionist from having to lose out this turn. And we decide just to hit face. That 1-1 isn't a big threat, and they aren't going for Evolve next turn. So we've got at least one more turn to kind of deal with it. Although Blood does tend to deal a lot of damage very quickly, in the early stages of the game, as long as you can hold your board, you're going to be pretty good.
Is mine.
Planning that out so we can get the extra draw while at the same time still keeping that one Earth Sigil alive. Unfortunately, I end my turn before I can play Scrap Iron, otherwise I would have went for it because it would have been a nice way to block off the board this turn, although it wouldn't have made much difference as they would have evolved that Ambling anyway. Plus, saving the Scrap Iron and comboing it with the Instructor isn't too bad a play. The only disadvantage is that we lose this Magic Illusionist this turn instead of being able to save it. So drawing that Halo Golem changed up my plan a little bit. I do decide just to get as much damage on them as I kind of can, while at the same time clearing their board out. As long as you limit Blood's board and you can defend yourself, you can pretty much roll them over with either the burn damage or the follower damage. Either way, you're pretty set. Our next match is Rune. And of course, they had to have the Daria, which I absolutely adore. I would love to have that. Pity I, never obtained it through all my Starforged Legend packs yet. Alright, so we start off with a pretty bare bones hand, and by the looks of it, they're probably going to be playing D-Shift, as most Earth Rune decks don't run that. Unfortunately, I only get Star, which is absolutely useless on its own, so playing it out as an Earth Sigil was my only decent play, because that way I can play the Magic Illusionist, and then even if they do use Spell to clear it, it's going to stay around. Unfortunately, Hand Return is an option, and it's something that I didn't really have a choice but to play into. Another unlucky play, they turn out just to play their bloody ward, makes it really hard to get through. But I can set up a couple of Earth Sigils, which works out nicely. Meaning whatever they decide to trade here, they're going to have to pretty much waste this golem.
Don't hold the applause. Come gather round.
And they had to use a fair bit to get rid of the Illusionist, which is quite nice for me. So now I've got to decide how I want to play this turn. I did decide to play the healer, even though I don't need it at this point. Mainly because he's a good body and he does proc an Earth Sigil, which will be really handy. As you can see, Halo Golem, perfect kind of draw. It's going to go nicely with these. And even if they don't, you know, clear off one thing from my board, I'm pretty set in the way that I can deal damage. Unfortunately, the owl makes my life a living hell. And they're getting very close to turn 7, which is where a little bit of luck can come in sometimes when you're playing against Rune. Sometimes you just need to get lucky. For me, it's right about now. So we get that 3 damage, we're able to set up that ward, making a D-shift turn next turn pretty impractical, especially since you don't usually see turn 6 D-shift that often. They do just go for some damage and start building up their board. Mouse Mage being my only good play. With the evolve I can get rid of that and have a threat on board that's going to be harder to deal with.
Here's what real magic looks like.
They have 3 cards in hand, assuming at least one of those is D-shift. The odds of them having everything they need to kill me is reasonably low for those 3 cards. If they had more, I would have been a little more concerned. Did make the mistake, I probably should have played the Witch's Cauldron second. The only thing I wanted was so that I could use that as a draw power if I do draw something that's usable. I didn't want to be proccing the Instructor's Earth Sigil before I proc my Draw Earth Sigil. So I could have done with the extra 1 health, but I did decide against it. And I was trying to search for anything, a Master Mage, something that I could use. Unfortunately, Starseer's Telescope, good, but not the best. I mean, I am going to get to double draw next turn. Unfortunately, not now, because they returned that Witch's Cauldron. It would have been nice if they returned one of the other ones. So, without drawing into something else that I can use, I'm not going to get this draw here. I get 1, but not the double that I was looking for.
Gaze into the light.
But the healing is nice. We're pretty much back to full health. It is getting trickier though, because the longer this game drags out, the harder it's going to be to actually win. Although it does look like they've burned through a lot of cards, so as long as I survive, then we'll keep on fighting. No point giving up too early, I always say. Alright, so 4/4 is going to, of course, probably hit, you know, one of the 2/2s. I don't know why you'd target that one over the healer, but that's the option they went with. Finally see the D-shift dropped. Kind of annoying. And of course, the Conjure Golems that they built up last turn were going to be played.
No.
So all we want is a Master Mage. If we can get that, we can clear this entire board and go for some crazy damage.
Here comes some real magic.
If we don't draw the Master Mage, then we're kind of screwed. And of course, the second D-shift.
No.
We're going to take a lot of damage,
Unbelievable.
but not quite enough to kill us. Which is good. I mean, if I'm not dead here, then I'm quite happy.
Fiction and a falsehood.
And with double Dance of Death and Oz, we can actually clear out most of this board here, while getting a reasonable damage. And of course I take this mainly for the draw, and because I've got 2 single drop Earth Sigils anyway. And decide to hold on to my turn just in case, because if they hit face and I can't get rid of this, I can't play Master Mage, which would suck. So as long as we don't see another D-shift, we should actually win this matchup so far. which no D shift. So all we gotta do is drop that Master Mage, clear out all their golems, and hit them straight in the face.
Woo! You got the stuff!
And our final matchup is another Blood player. Like I said, Blood is pretty popular, so it's good that we have a couple of matches here to show off how this deck really works against Blood. Starting off with another really good hand. The Piercing Rune is low to average. I probably would normally drop it, but I did decide just to hold on to it. Especially since I'm going second, meaning my evolve will be earlier than theirs. So I can take advantage of Piercing Rune. And with Levi and Dwarven Alchemist, that's actually really good. And similar plays to last time.
This is my home.
Being able to throw out the Golem, throw out the Telescope straight after. You're pretty right. And because Starseer gives us that play point back, being able to throw out a 2-drop here is always perfect.
Gather round.
The only bad thing is that they've got a 1/4, which is going to be a pain in the ass to deal with.
Let us battle
And Angelic
together.
Knight makes it just that little bit harder.
Unbelievable.
But the fortunate part is they didn't hit the 2/2, meaning I can actually take advantage of this as much as I want.
Defeated.
Come gather round.
So, Dwarven Alchemist, pretty okay. Gives us that Earth Sigil that I need. As long as we can buy till next turn, Master Mage plus Piercing Rune should clear out the majority of what they've got. And then from there we can pretty much just play what we need. Unfortunately, them putting themselves to 10 against Burn Rune as a vengeance player, really good for me.
Who's as old as dirt?
You're done for.
Now, I debated on a few different ways I wanted to handle this turn when I was playing, and ended up deciding that getting rid of that 2/2 and then just killing off the 4/4 and the 1/2 was my better play. It's going to be hard for them to get rid of that Magic Illusionist, especially when it summons itself. And next turn is 5 where Dance of Death or a Crimson and Mage of Nightfall or something could easily drop down, so I wasn't too concerned with their plays. And they continue to drop themselves even lower, which for me is quite good.
Unbelievable.
But they do finally get rid of this Master Mage. Not Master Mage, sorry, the Magic Illusionist. Leaving themselves with the 3/3 body. Decide just to Dance of Death it. I can take 2 damage, especially if I'm setting them to 4. Although the better play probably would have been just to drop the Crimson Sorcery, hit them for 3 into the face, and then play Master Mage next turn for win. Unfortunately, I missed that when I was playing this match, and decided to focus more on keeping the board steady, mainly because against Blood that tends to be what I do most often.
The name's Levi, don't forget.
But we can pretty much do the same kind of setup here. We remove this 6/6 as long as they don't have 6 damage in the next, well, sorry, 5 damage in the next turn, because Karabar's will ping us for 1, then we're gonna win.
Unbelievable.
How close this will get, I can only wait and see. I mean, they need literally 1 damage.
This is my
Fortunately, they didn't seem to have it.
Unbelievable.
And with that, Crimson Sorcery can give us victory.
Your strength is
Put myself in a bad spot, but ended up with the same result. So as always, you'll find the deck list for this in the description below. Make sure to check that out if you want to play something that can usually be reasonably consistent and deals with most meta decks quite effectively. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.